Welcome back to another challenge video where I try to improve Mario's reputation. Cause as you know, Mario is not a hero and loves to attack random creatures all the time. He's pretty violent, which is why I try to beat as many games without being violent. I want to redeem the dude. The rules are simple. We are going to be playing the story mode in Super Mario Maker 2, which is made up of over 90 different levels. All of this without being violent. Will this be possible? I don't know, but we'll try to clear as many levels without the use of violent acts. Look at that beautiful castle. It would be a shame if something were to happen to it. Oh, well, this dog kinda destroyed it all. That sucks. I guess this is why I'm a cat person. Alright, let's give it our all and try to rebuild the castle by doing jobs, and all of this without violence. Job 1 features a bunch of Goombas all over the place, and sometimes it's a bit difficult to avoid jumping on one. The checkpoint flag turns you into Starman Mario, which means that touching anything will kill it, which is something I don't want to do. This part here was nerve-wracking because it seemed like all of those Galoombas wanted to be violently destroyed. I still managed to dodge them all. Job 2 is all about those on-off switches, and at first it's not so bad. I did have to refrain from hitting those switches to save those piranha plants over there, but alas, this part here wants us to get a star and destroy all of these big plants to get to the end. Well, that was fast. We already have to be violent. I guess this job is not possible. Job 3 is kind of a tricky one. Basically, it introduces all of the 3D World game theme mechanics, including the cat suit. I thought this one would allow me to go pretty much anywhere, but eventually I got to this part where I need to use the big block to create a staircase to get up there. The thing is, if we hit that block twice, the plant falls down in a pit. I did try all sorts of jumps to see if it was possible to do it without pushing the plant, but I couldn't do it. Now, here's the tricky part. Does pushing the plant using this block count as an act of violence? I mean, I technically did not attack the plant, it just happened to be there and fell down. I think this does constitute violence in a way, so I guess I'll mark this one as impossible, but let me know what you think in the comments. Job 4 is all about the angry sun attacking us, and this dude ain't cool. There's gonna be Goombas falling down on the platform as we ride, but we can let them walk out without having to interfere and attack them, making this one quite easy. Job 5 wants us to pick up a Yoshi and bring it to the end of the stage, but in order to do so, we have to get past this tower of Galoombas. As I didn't want to hit them, I used Yoshi and this Boo there to get damaged, and then use my invincibility frames to jump back on Yoshi, allowing me to cross through these guys without even attacking them. Genius, I know. The rest of the stage was a total joke. Job 6 wants you to collect 30 coins, and to do so, we have to go through 4 different challenges full of enemies. Luckily, we actually never have to attack them. Job 7 is full of claws, and you gotta swing all over the place. Luckily, the only enemies we can be violent with are those red Koopa Troopas, and dodging them all is not difficult. Job 8 wants you to attack one of those guys in a shoe to steal it and walk on the munchers. But I don't want to do it, cause it's violent. Luckily, there's mushrooms that we can collect to then run as fast as we can on the munchers to get to a safe place. I died many times to this dude over there, but eventually I made it to the other side and completed the level. Job 9 is a haunted house with many challenges. Completing these gives you a key that you can use to unlock all the doors and get to the end. Luckily, I didn't have to defeat a single enemy and managed to complete enough of those challenges to complete the stage. I just skipped the challenges that wanted me to defeat enemies and still had enough keys to proceed. Job 10 is full of Banzai Bills, but we never have to jump on any of them to get to the end. Job 11 wants you to move through a level full of seesaws. Sometimes you have to do ground pound attacks to move plants out of your way, but I would hardly consider this to be an act of violence, as we're just moving them peacefully. Job 12 will make us flip the stage to walk on the ceiling, but that's all good as no enemies will be on our way to the end. Job 13 is a castle level, and we have to ride a shell on lava. Thankfully, the shell comes without an enemy to defeat to get into, so it's all good. At the end, when I grabbed the axe, this Bowser dude fell down and died. But I mean, I had already beaten the level, so I can't really count this as an act of violence. This was all part of the cutscene, so we're good. Job 14 is full of munchers, and this part here typically wants us to use this POW block to defeat a bunch of them to get to the other side. The old Mario would do it without hesitating, but the new and improved Mario will just damage boost through these guys without hurting them. Ha! Such a good guy now, Mario. So proud of you. Job 15 is a no jumping allowed level, so if we jump, we cannot finish the stage. Luckily, we never actually have to jump or defeat enemies to get to the end, which kinda surprised me. I was sure we were gonna have to defeat something to get to the flagpole, but no, it didn't happen. Job 16 is a level where we ride a flying clown car and shoot fireballs to destroy blocks and get to the end. There's a ton of enemies we could attack, but we never have to attack a single one in order to proceed through the level, which is actually great for the quest. Job 17 is a puzzle level where we need to use claws to move Goombas onto note blocks in order to get keys. It was all going good. I was solving all of the puzzles up until the very end. We have to get this Goomba inside of the flying car to then defeat that Goomba and fly to the flagpole. There is no other way to achieve victory, meaning I had to attack a Goomba. Yup, this level is not possible. Job 18 is all about climbing to the top of 12 trees in order to be allowed to finish the stage. Along the way, you'll meet a bunch of enemies, but they can all be avoided, so no biggie. Job 19 is the first underwater level, and it's filled to the brim with cheeps trying to eat you whole, but luckily, this one is all about running away. Or swimming away for that matter. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that no violence had to be done. Job 20 was pretty stressful, as we have to navigate a flying Koopa Clown car in between a bajillion different enemies, and this will force us to damage boost many times in order to get through all of these guys without hurting them. Thankfully, the second part was much easier, and eventually I made my way to the end. Job 21 is a very simple stage where you ride a snake block to the flagpole. There are 0 enemies here, and thus 0 violence opportunities. Job 22 takes place in a flooded forest, and while it features a couple annoying fishes, they can all be dodged quite easily as there's water everywhere. Job 23 wants you to climb on vines in the sky, and well, these Lakidus throwing enemies can be quite annoying, but I still managed to dodge them all. Job 24 was full of clear pipes and Goombas, so I had to make sure not to touch them while collecting all of the pink coins, but it was thankfully not that difficult. Job 25 was full of boos all over the place, but as you might know, these guys are 1. Already dead, so we cannot be violent, and also 2. Pretty much invulnerable to us jumping on their heads, so all I had to do was to avoid them all until I got to the end of the stage. Job 26 is sadly impossible, as we have to bounce from Koopas to Koopas, and there's no way to damage boost our way to the end. And not only do we have to be violent with them, we also have to defeat a Bowser Jr. near the end to get a key. Ugh. Job 27 wants us to defeat 25 cheeps in order to win. As this is a clear condition, that means we cannot actually beat the level without doing that. As I can't be violent, I just can't complete this one. Job 28 is full of little puzzles involving us kicking a shell onto piranha plants in order to collect pink coins. Obviously, as I kick the shells onto a bunch of enemies, I'm being super violent, meaning that this one is also impossible. Job 29 wants you to run away from a poison mushroom that never seems to give up. That rotten mushroom really wants you dead. Ugh, scary. Thankfully, there are no other enemies to avoid or fight, so we're all good. Job 30 has a bunch of red and blue blocks, and they vanish with the beat of the music. That's kind of a cool mechanic. It's also full of those big bug guys walking all over the place. We never have to attack them, so it's all good. Job 31 is a simple elevator ride down to the end. Yup, just stand there, avoid the enemies, and make your way down to the end. It was that simple. Job 32 takes place inside a secret temple, and we have to solve a bunch of puzzles to get to the top. The problem is that eventually we reach this puzzle where we have to defeat this Goomba to get his shoe in order to move on to the next part, which constitutes an act of violence. Sadly, this level is not possible. Job 33 is all about running as fast as we can to get to the end within the time limit. Luckily, it contains no enemies, and thus it was super easy to clear. Job 34 features a bunch of bumpers and a few enemies here and there, but it's actually quite simple to just not jump on their heads. Job 35 was also a total joke, as climbing to the top of this level features no challenge whatsoever. Job 36 is a level where you gotta switch the gravity in order to proceed, and it does feature a few enemies that could potentially be annoying you, but thankfully, I managed to avoid them all. Job 37 takes place on a seesaw on rail, meaning you'll have to avoid everything that the game throws your way. This includes Koopas, chain chomps, and other things. It's all possible to dodge them all though. Job 38 was very simple, as it's basically just a level where you run away from the scrolling screen until you reach the end. Job 39 wants you to reach the goal after defeating Bowser. Uh-oh, defeating Bowser means being violent, and that's just not allowed. Yep, this one is impossible. Job 40 contains a bunch of boo rings that you have to avoid, but it wasn't too bad. Job 41 looks like this. We have a plant and a green pipe, and the only way to enter this pipe is to defeat the plant. You know what that means, this level is not happening on my watch. Job 42 takes place underwater and features so many enemies. It also features snake blocks that can protect us, so we're in the clear. Job 43 takes place in the dark, and it's a bit scary, but not because of enemies, no, because of endless pits you can fall into. We just gotta be careful, and it's gonna be good. Job 44 forces us to bounce all over the place and collect 40 yucky coins. There's a bunch of bullet bills we're supposed to use to help us out, but alas, we cannot do that for this quest. Thankfully, we have a spring that's perfectly safe and fine to use in order to collect all of the coins, so we're good to go. Job 45 is a scary level involving hot boiling lava rising to burn our butts. While this is spooky, getting to the end of the stage without having to be violent is possible and not too difficult either. Job 46 is a level full of thwomps and they can crush you, so you gotta be careful. These thwomps will also crush a bunch of enemies that block our path. But hey, that's not me doing the violence, it's them! They are the bad guys, not Mario, so we're on the clear. Job 47 takes place underwater and there's a bunch of fireballs all over the place. Yeah, I know, fireballs in water, that makes no sense. But hey, I don't make the rules, blame Nintendo and Reggie! Anyways, this level was super easy to beat. Job 48 wants us to reach the goal after defeating 6 dry bones. You know dang well I cannot do that, that would be violent. And even if those guys are technically not alive, defeating them is still an act of violence, so it's illegal. Job 49 features more bead blocks and a few piranha plants here and there. I managed to get all the way to the top without hitting a single enemy. Job 50 has more rotten mushrooms running at us to get eaten, but we don't need to. Job 51 features a bunch of Koopa Clown cars. At first, I thought we needed to defeat an enemy to get a car of our own, but no, this pipe gave us a free one. I then collected all the coins and made my way to the end. Job 52 was very simple, as the only enemies that could be attacked are those Koopa Troopas and those bullet bills, and they're all quite easy to avoid. Job 53 was also quite simple, as it doesn't feature a single enemy that can be defeated. The same thing goes with Job 54, there's only one bad guy here, and it's the Angry Sun, and we can't even fight the guy. Job 55 features a car, a plant, and a bunch of spikes. As you can probably tell, we need to defeat the Koopa to steal his car and then run over the plant. Man, is this Mario Maker or GTA 6? I'm not doing these violent things! Job 56 was fairly simple, as you just need to chill on this train of shells and collect a bunch of coins. Job 57 is pretty much the same thing, except you swim to collect a bunch of coins. Easy! Job 58 is super simple, as you need to ride on twisters to get to the top of the stage. Eventually, I got to this part where I needed to be violent toward a Bubum in order to break those blocks and open up the way. Ah, well, that's some violent behavior. This one is not possible. Job 59 is full of cannons and cannonballs. These things are inanimate objects, so jumping on them is actually perfectly fine and not violent. We're all good! Job 60 features plenty of evil piranha plants, but as this level is low gravity, we can just make our way in between them all and no violence has to be done. Job 61 was a bit difficult, because we need to use those falling donut platforms to get to the bottom of this vertical section. Those Goombas can be quite annoying, and since we cannot defeat them, we'll have to make the right donut platforms fall down in order to trap them above us. This is easier said than done, but it is possible. Job 62 was very simple and featured no challenge whatsoever. Job 63 is an ambiguous one for me, like it's full of enemies and I managed to dodge a bunch, including this big bad Bowser at the end, but here's the thing, I also had to hit those on-off switches to get through this part here, and that killed at least 3 munchers. Luckily, we can get out of the Koopa Clown cart and damage boost through them to then hit the checkpoint and get another Koopa Clown cart, so we're good! Job 64 takes place on super fast snake blocks, but it doesn't feature any enemies except those 2 wigglers here. We normally have to bounce on them, but since we cannot do that, I managed to damage boost on the spikes waiting for a snake block to come back and save me. Job 65 wasn't possible because it wants us to use a POW block to destroy a bunch of plants, and that's not really nice, don't you think? Job 66 makes us ride those flying beetles while avoiding some fire bars. As we're just riding these guys, we're not actually hurting them, so it's all good. Job 67 features a bunch of boom booms to avoid being violent to, but it is all possible. Job 68 is all about running as fast as we can to the end of the stage to avoid getting destroyed by Banzai Bills. These guys are being violent toward us, but we won't be reciprocating, so it's good. Job 69 was all about doing some wall jumps to get to the top of this level. It only features a couple bullet bills that we could hit while moving up, but I did pay attention and dodged them all. Job 70 was super simple, provided you make sure to take the bottom path while running super fast. Once you get to the end, if you're on the top path, you'll have to jump on an enemy and cause some useless violence. Luckily, the bottom path is actually quite good. Job 71 is all about hitting on-off switches in order to guide little Koopa Troopas to a node block to get a key and move on. Simple and non-violent. Until you get to this screen here. Yeah, there's a wall here and we have to hit the Koopa shell in order to break the blocks and open up the path. And you know, kicking a Koopa shell is pretty violent, so that's an impossible stage. Job 72 wants us to attack this Goomba to get a shoe in order to walk on dangerous plants. I managed to skip this first section by damage boosting to the top there. After that, I had to time my jump to avoid the thwomp, but this next part actually forced me to have the shoe in order to jump on that thwomp. Yeah, this is definitely not happening without another mushroom to help me out, so this is another impossible level. Job 73 was full of fireballs falling from the sky, which was spooky, but thankfully, it never forced me to hit anyone. No violence needed. Job 74 has a clear condition where we need to defeat 10 bloopers. So yeah, this one is definitely not gonna be possible. Job 75 is full of enemies to dodge in a very tight space, which is actually quite difficult. But the truth is, I eventually managed to get through all of this stage, only to get to this final part where we are supposed to hit blocks in order to trigger bombs explosions to break open a path to the end. Obviously, triggering those bombs on purpose is an act of violence, which I will never participate in. Yeah, this one is also impossible. Job 76 was tricky at first. It requires us to collect 50 coins by throwing bombs at coins. Throwing them is violent, so we won't be doing that. Luckily for us, at the end, there's a spring that we can get with the help of this Magic Koopa up there. And once we get the spring, well, we can go back and do some scary jumps to collect all of the remaining coins. It's quite challenging, but it is possible. Job 77 is a haunted house full of different challenges. I managed to clear 3 out of the 4 challenges without any problem whatsoever. But the last one involved attacking enemies in order to collect keys. Obviously, we won't be doing that because it's too violent. Job 78 gives you a big mushroom and you become this huge version of Mario that can break ice blocks. That's neat. That mushroom will be all that is needed to win the stage. Job 79 wants us to attack this poor little skipsqueak and get a key. And that's not happening. Not on my watch. This one is not possible. Job 80 was a total joke, as there are no enemies on the way whatsoever. Same thing goes for Job 81. And guess what? Job 82 is the same thing. Well, we're on a roll with these jobs. Job 83 is all about spitting fire and killing as many enemies as we can. So yeah, this one is actually impossible for this quest. Job 84 has a couple challenges involving a dry bone shell, and at first it's all good, but soon we'll face this one here, where we need to defeat a boo and then hit a POW block, defeating way too many muncher plants and thus creating havoc using violence. Not happening. Job 85 features no enemies at all, allowing us to quickly beat it. Job 86 is a super simple level, and all of the enemies can be dodged. There's this part here where some icicles fall down on piranha plants, but I mean, they just fell down on their own. Mario did nothing wrong. I don't think that counts as violence, it's just nature being wild. Job 87 was actually not too complicated. We just have to dodge all of the enemies that the game throws at us on our way up this lava tower. Job 88 was a total joke and not even worth discussing. Job 89 wants us to kick a Koopa shell to break open those blocks, but if I do that, he falls into the lava and dies. Oh no, that's way too violent. I'm joining you, Red Koopa, wait for me! Job 90 features a couple enemies on our way to the end, and if we run into them using the Starman, they die, which isn't cool. We can still manage to dodge them all though, so it's all good. Well, there we go. Is it possible to beat Super Mario Maker 2's story mode without being violent? No, it isn't. Out of the 90 different levels we played, we had 22 that needed us to be violent in order to beat them. That means that about 25% of levels were impossible. So basically, 1 out of 4 cannot be beaten. Thankfully, this means that 3 out of 4 can be beaten without violence, which is pretty positive, don't you think? Thanks a lot for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to go watch Super Nico Maker, the channel where you can send me your own Mario Maker 2 levels so I can play them on video. Alright, see you there, bye bye!